What if I told you the man who warned us about the absurdity of life didn't want us to despair, but to wake up? Albert Camus, the philosopher most misunderstood by critics and fans alike, didn't preach nihilism. He whispered freedom, and we missed it. We turned him into a symbol of existential gloom, a prophet of hopelessness. But what he truly offered was something far more dangerous. A reason to live without illusion. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that all you believed about purpose, progress, and permanence was a lie. That no grand meaning waiting for you at the end of your struggle, no cosmic reward, no final justice, just silence. For most people, that silence is terrifying, but Camus saw it as an invitation, not to surrender, but to rebel. Not against society or God or fate, but against despair itself. The absurd, as Camus defines it, is the collision between our hunger for meaning and the universe's indifference. It's that crushing moment when life no longer makes sense, when the stories we've told ourselves fall apart. And here's the terrifying part. This moment is not an exception. It's the rule. It's the underlying condition of human consciousness. We merely spend our lives trying not to see it. But what did Camus say we should do when we see it? Most people assume he advocated for hopelessness. The absurd leads to nihilism, but they couldn't be more wrong. Camus wasn't interested in giving up. He was interested in what comes after disillusionment, when the veil is lifted, when reality stands raw, cruel, and unconquerable. What then? His answer wasn't surrender. It was a revolt. Think of Sisyphus, the mythological figure condemned to push a boulder up a hill for eternity, only to watch it roll back down. Most of us would see this as torture. But Camus reimagines Sisyphus not as a victim, but as a hero. Why? Because he doesn't run, he doesn't quit, he pushes the rock anyway. And in that moment, Camus says, we must imagine Sisyphus happy, not because the task has meaning, but because he gives it meaning, because in the face of absurdity, he chooses to continue. That is freedom. That is rebellion. That is the courage most of us lack. We chase happiness like it's owed to us. We expect the world to explain itself, to reward us for being good, for trying hard, for believing. But the world doesn't work like that, and when it doesn't, we collapse. We say, "What's the point?" Camus answered that question bluntly. There is none. And yet you are here, you are alive in a world that owes you nothing. That in itself is miraculous. Camus didn't want us to mourn the absence of meaning. He wanted us to confront it and live anyway. Not with false hope, but with defiance, with dignity, with clarity, but we didn't listen. We still expect life to add up. We still wait for it to deliver what it never promised. A perfect love, a flawless career, a clean story arc. And when it doesn't, we say life is unfair. No, life is indifferent. And Camus knew that was the source of its terrible beauty. There is no justice in the cosmos, no divine scoreboard. But that doesn't mean you stop playing the game. It means you choose your reason to play. You become the author of your rebellion. You craft a life not because it's guaranteed to mean something, but precisely because it's not. And that's what makes it yours. But most people don't want that kind of freedom. It's too heavy, too lonely. They want rules, scripts, promises. Camus knew this. He called out ideologies that offered salvation at the price of thought. He saw how people cling to religion, to politics, to identity, not out of strength, but out of fear. The fear of facing the absurd alone. That's why he refused both nihilism and dogma, because both are escapes. Nihilism says nothing matters, so give up. Dogma says everything is explained, so stop questioning. Camus said, reject both, stay awake, stay lucid, bear the weight of existence with your eyes open, but that's a terrifying demand. And so we watered him down. We turned Camus into a sad French philosopher who smoked and stared at the void. But he wasn't sad, he was on fire. He was alive. His passion was not for despair, but for truth, for human dignity in the face of cosmic silence. When we read Camus today, we should not be asking what he thought of death, but what he thought of life. He didn't write for the dead. He wrote for the living, for those on the edge, for those who have tasted despair and are still looking for a way to stand. He saw the absurd not as a reason to die, but as a reason to live more fiercely. And that message, that's what we ignored. We live in an age obsessed with meaning. We want everything to be part of a plan. Every pain has a purpose. Every failure is a lesson. But Camus challenged that. He said, what if there is no plan? What if pain is just pain? What if the universe doesn't care? And what if that's okay, because maybe we don't need the universe to care? Maybe it's enough that we care. That we wake up, breathe, love, build, break, cry, laugh. Not because it all leads somewhere, but because we choose to do it anyway. Camus warned us about this hunger for illusions. He said, the literal meaning of life is whatever you're doing that prevents you from killing yourself. It's a brutal line, but it's also a liberating one. It means your life is not a puzzle to be solved. It's an act to be performed, and how you perform it, that's where meaning is born, not found. Born, but we didn't want to hear that. We wanted tidy answers. We wanted meaning given, not earned. We wanted the world to justify us. And Camus said, it won't. So justify yourself. Stand on your own feet. Carry your burden. Push your boulder. Not because it will lead to anything, but because you can. That's the power Camus offered us. Not salvation, not clarity, but strength. The strength to live without guarantees, to laugh in the face of futility, to be brave enough to say, yes, life is absurd, and I'm here anyway. Camus didn't see absurdity as a philosophical dead end. He saw it as a point of ignition, a place where the soul catches fire. Because once you stop waiting for life to validate you, you start living it on your terms, not in bitterness, not in apathy, but in a kind of sacred rebellion. The kind that breathes depth into even the most ordinary moments. He believed that freedom begins the moment we stop demanding answers, when we let go of why me and start asking, what now? That's the shift. That's the beginning of real consciousness. You don't need to know why the universe exists to feel the sun on your face, or to hold someone you love, or to create something beautiful in the face of entropy. The absence of meaning doesn't diminish these things, it intensifies them. Because when nothing is promised, everything becomes precious. Every second, every breath, every touch. That's what Camus understood. That's what we keep forgetting. We drown ourselves in distractions, in ideologies, in the noise of constant answers. But Camus asks, can you stand still in the silence? Can you look into the abyss and not look away? Can you live without appeal? To live without appeal means to live without begging the universe for a reason. It means refusing to be a child forever waiting for someone to tell you what's right. It's the courage to make meaning, not borrow it, to create purpose, not inherit it. That's the existential maturity Camus called us to. And it's a terrifying kind of adulthood, because no one's coming to save you. But once you accept that, something miraculous happens. You begin to act, not out of fear, not out of obligation, but from the raw, untamed force of your own will. You write your script. You define your victory. You stop measuring your life by someone else's scale. That's freedom. And that's exactly what the world around you tries to prevent. Because a free person, truly free, is dangerous. Not in a violent way, but in a way they can no longer be manipulated. They can't be seduced by promises or paralyzed by fear. That's why Camus's ideas were revolutionary. Because they dismantle the illusion that we need meaning handed to us. They ask us to become authors of our lives, even when the plot goes nowhere. Especially then. But here's the part that breaks my heart. Most of us will never take that step. We'll keep waiting. Waiting for the world to make sense. Waiting for happiness to arrive. Waiting for permission to be fully alive. And in that waiting, we miss everything. We miss life itself. Camus wanted to wake us from that sleep. He didn't write to comfort. He wrote to provoke, to disturb the stagnant water of our complacency. He wanted to shake us out of the dream. Because only then can we become lucid. And with lucidity comes choice. Not the illusion of choice we get from society, but real choice. The choice to love in a loveless world, to create in a decaying one, to laugh without a punchline, to fight without a promise of victory. That's the revolt Camus admired. That's what makes us truly human. He once said that a man's worth is not determined by what he hopes for, but by what he does. That's the challenge, to act, to live, to take every meaningless day and make it burn with personal meaning. Not because it leads somewhere, but because you're here now. And yes, it's hard, it's brutal. There's no safety net in this vision of life, but there's also no ceiling. You're not a character in a script, you're the author. That's terrifying, but it's also empowering. Because once you accept that there's no higher justification coming, you stop waiting. You start living, and maybe that's what scares us most. Once we see the truth, we have no more excuses. We can't blame fate, or society, or even God. It's just us. Naked, awake, free. Camus didn't want us to despair. He wanted us to rebel with grace, to become lovers of this strange, indifferent world, not because it makes sense, but because it doesn't. And somehow, that makes it even more beautiful. Think about it. If life is a perfect system, a resolute equation, it would be able to be predicted. But because this is not the case, because it challenges logic and order, each moment becomes a miracle. Every kiss, every failure, every sunrise, they mean nothing, and so they can mean anything. And that's the secret. That's what Camus was trying to tell us. He wasn't writing for cynics. He was writing for warriors, for those brave enough to carry the weight of freedom, for those who don't need guarantees to act with courage, for those who, even in the face of a meaningless universe, say yes to life, not because it will last, but because it's now. And so I ask you, if you've ever felt the crushing emptiness of existence, if you've stared into the void and heard nothing, if you've looked at your life and thought, what's the point? Don't turn away. Don't numb yourself. Don't give in to despair. That feeling isn't a flaw. It's your awakening. It's the beginning of your revolt, the birth of your freedom. The moment when you stop living someone else's idea of meaning and start creating your own. Because Camus warned us, if we don't confront the absurd, it will quietly destroy us. We'll rot behind smiles, decay inside roles, die with our masks still on. But if we do confront it fully, honestly, fearlessly, then we can become something rare, someone truly alive. So what will you do now, knowing that life offers no meaning but the one you create? What purpose will you invent? What beauty will you bring into a world that never asked for it? Tell me in the comments. What's your revolt? What's your act of rebellion against despair? And if this made you pause, if it made you feel something raw and real inside you, then don't just let it fade. Like this video. Subscribe. Not for me, for you, to keep waking up, to stay lucid, to keep pushing your boulder, not because you must, but because it's yours. And never forget what Camus meant. The world may be indifferent, but you don't have to be.